Welcome to the Art of Transitions. My name is Gwen Mazza, and our guest today is Charles Puls. He is from the University of Rochester, and he has joined us today to discuss on becoming a serving leader. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
This is the story about a group of kids who volunteered.
Do something nice for someone.
We fixed stuff.
Did some art projects with the kids.
Cleaned up the park.
Did something for the planet.
And you know what? It was great.
At first, they didn't know each other.
Well, that didn't last long.
These are my
New friends.
Are you into it?
Call 4-H or check out our website at areyouintoit.com.
Welcome back to the Art of Transitions. My name is Gwen Mazza, and our guest today is Charles Puls. I know him as Chad, so welcome, Chad. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Chad is actually let me get your title correct, the Associate Dean and Director of Financial Aid here at our great college and University of Rochester, right here in Rochester, New York. And I asked you to come in today because you and I have had some really great experiences of growing together. And you have been someone I have witnessed walking into the process of becoming truly a serving leader. Mm-hmm. And so I was hoping what you might do is introduce our audience to the serving leader concept, maybe spend a little time talking about what some of the principles are, and if you don't mind, how you actually went about the journey about becoming a serving leader. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be the one talking about this with you. Yeah. I guess, coming from a background, you and I had worked together for several years. Mm-hmm. I had the opportunity to work with you as a job coach, and I remember at one point along the way you had suggested I read the book Serving Leader, and I remember coming to you afterwards saying, wait a second, this is everything we've talked about for the past couple of years.
Yes.
I think I even joked that we should write it.
I think that was right. Yes, you said, this is us. And I was like, yes, it is us. And it was really a neat concept. What did you find about the premise of a serving leader? Or can you maybe just take a moment and help the audience understand what a serving leader really is?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things from reading the book and from the experiences that you and I have had was really the opportunity for a leader to bring out the best in the people that they're working with. You and I have talked a lot over the years about me having transitioned from very much an operations manager role into a leadership role. My jobs in the past were about making sure that everything got done. And one of the biggest challenges in my new role at the university was that it wasn't my job to make sure everything got done as much as it was to make sure that everybody was in the best position to get their work done.
Right.
And so I think that that's one of the key pieces for me was realizing a completely different focus for what I was doing. I wasn't focusing on pushing the paper or figuring out how the folders were going to move. I had to learn how to focus on helping create the environment for each person, helping each person discover what it was where they would succeed most,
right.
And really putting the focus on them doing the leadership as opposed to me doing the leadership.
So they actually became serving leaders too. They somehow had to, so before they could transition into becoming a serving leader, you had to transition. And so what I'd like to do is just bring us back a little bit to when we first met, and you were that operations manager.
Yep.
And that's what you knew. And what you knew is how to get the work done and how to be prepared. Could you share with the audience a little bit of your career? You've had a pretty amazing career.
Well, thank you. I've been in financial aid for 18 years now.
Hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know.
And worked my way up. I started out as a counselor, a financial aid counselor while I was getting my graduate degree in college administration. And have had the chance to really kind of had one of those progressive careers, counselor, assistant director, associate director, director. I've had a chance to work at a number of places, Dartmouth College, Boston College, University of Rochester. So I've had the opportunity to experience a lot of different things.
Right.
One of the nice things about how everything came together at the university was that it gave me the opportunity to pull from all these different things. You know, I moved into this role as Director of Financial Aid and now Associate Dean of College Enrollment, and am able to look back and really say, okay, what are the best things of all of the people that I've worked with, and really try to embody what I think was done really well before me. You know, so I look to Ginny Hazen, the Director of Financial Aid back at Dartmouth College, or John Mahoney, the Director of Admissions at Boston College, and you know, see the things that they did well and take their advice and then try to apply it within what I do in this role, and also realize just how challenging their jobs were the whole time that I didn't realize what it was that they were doing.
Right.
Because there's a big difference between reading the files and creating the environment in which people can successfully get the files read.
So what you've just shared as part of being that serving leader is one of your roles is to really help create the environment. What kind of things have you done to help create a serving leader environment in the financial aid? Because I've watched it grow again, so it's pretty neat.
Well, there's things that I've done for myself, and then there's things that I've done for the staff. For myself, I've poured a lot of energy and a lot of other people's energy into helping me make the transition. I definitely couldn't have done the transition on my own. You've been a major player in this. I work very closely with the Human Resources Department at the university. I work very closely with initiatives at the Warner School.
Right.
I forget the technical name, it's our School of Education.
Right.
And I've worked with the Intercessor at the university, as well as trying to pull from other directors and things like that. So it's definitely a group effort to have gotten me where I am. And my supervisor, the Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid, has been incredibly supportive of letting me do all of this.
Of growing you.
Yes.
And that's exactly what that is growing you. There's that time before you actually probably took the step into serving leaderhood that and leadership that you talked about that you didn't know about the difference really between an operations manager and a serving leader. And there's that time in that growing time where it's really pretty awkward. When did you first really get the concept that there might be a different way to work in the world of work as a serving leader? What are some of the moments, the aha moments that you might have had?
Well, I had a very startling moment. We have a program at the university where the human resources can do an organizational assessment. And so they come in and they interview all of the staff and the directors and the leaders and every level of staff to get feedback on how things are working, both from a positive standpoint of what is working, as well as from a constructive standpoint of what needs to grow.
So it's a really gathering of information.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Kind of the unbiased third party coming in, and then providing a report back. And one of the things that I learned from that, it was extremely useful feedback to see how others interpret me. Because I know who I am. Right. And there's me. People talk about their kind of who they are in the office versus who they are at home. Right. And even the simple feedback of learning that my style, at home growing up, my sister, my family, not so much my dad, but my mom, we have a very sarcastic humor, the things we laugh about, kind of the style that we tease each other and things like that. That is very much kind of who makes me me on the outside of work, but learning that that doesn't really interpret the same way in the office, and really getting that as specific feedback, something that kind of in hindsight I'm like, okay, I should have made that understanding on my own, but sometimes it helps to have someone come out and give you an assessment of how you've done. And really the piece for me that made that whole assessment worthwhile was then taking that assessment back to the staff and saying, here is what I've heard.
Right.
Here are the things that I'm learning from this. Here are the things that I think that you're looking for. Help me make sure that I'm thinking the right things. One piece of advice that I've gotten from Barb Sock quite a bit over the years, she reminds me of this, is the importance of letting the staff know what it is that I'm doing.
Correct.
As opposed to just changing my behavior and having them look at me and go, how come he's not doing that anymore?
Right.
I very, very clearly let people know I'm doing this differently based on the feedback I've received or based on the goal that I'm trying to achieve. So I think it's important to take whatever feedback, wherever it's coming from, and I can think of points throughout my career at Dartmouth, at Boston College, here at U of R, where I've gotten a really useful opportunity for growth.
Right.
And as opposed to just kind of saying, oh, you know, whatever, I'm good at what I'm good at, and I'm just going to be that way. Really kind of biting into it and saying, okay, if I want to go to the next stage, I have to be willing to take these ideas from other people and make them my own, because I don't think anybody can really grow into the next level if they're not willing to allow others to have input into how that growth should occur.
So part of what I also hear you saying, in what I saw you do, is really have courage to walk through, because we're often taught this is what you do, you're very good at your job, and yes, folks want to be open to feedback, and sometimes it's really challenging to, it's one thing to say, it's another thing to do it, though. And that's what I saw you do. And it's to be able to come in with a non-defended posture, but to take information simply as information and see what you can do to grow it and develop it. And so that sounds like it was a really great opportunity for you to begin to decide how you were going to alter the way in which you were leading a team. One of the things I remember us talking about a lot of times was we would talk about your role in the group, and that you would no longer be able to be the one rowing the boat, but you had to sit up in the crow's nest. Do you remember that vision? And I think about you often when I think of ships or those pieces. And part of one of the things you just mentioned was a book by John Stallworth and Ken Jennings, the serving leader, that came out. They really talk about some basic principles that go into that. Is it okay if I go over these?
Sure.
Okay. One of the ones from the serving leader really is to run to great purpose, to upend the pyramid, to raise the bar, to blaze the trail, and to build on strengths. Now, our viewing audience may or may not have had the opportunity to have read this book yet. It's a great book. Out of those pieces, you really are upending the pyramid. Can you talk a little bit about what it means to upend a pyramid?
It goes back to that piece that we were talking about of really putting everybody else first. Trying to think about it. It almost ties in so much with all the other pieces, it's hard to pull it out as its own. But it really is putting the rest of the team at the front. And one of the things my role, the idea of upending the pyramid is putting the leader at the bottom, kind of with everybody resting on the leader and the leader providing that support for everyone, as opposed to it necessarily being the leaders at the top and people just have to support the leader. So
is one of the great things you get to do is remove roadblocks?
Yes.
Isn't that a neat piece of this?
It is fun.
It's a neat part of it. You get, one of the things I also know you guys did in your group, you folks did, was you worked real hard to create your vision, the beautiful vision for your department, and identify your values. Huge part, if you know, and please agree or disagree if you like, I believe that my role as a CEO and as a leader is to communicate the vision for the company, where we're headed and where we're going, and the values that are going to guide our behaviors. And what are your thoughts around that piece as a serving leader?
Well, it's interesting that you bring up the vision piece, because I think that that's an excellent, hearing kind of the background on it gives an idea of the transition that I made. Our vision came out of a retreat that we had. And when I started at the university, the retreats we had were things that I did. I would plan the whole thing. I was the one presenting. I was the one leading everybody through the whole process. The first year was just a half day, but it was completely about me running these things.
Top and down.
Top and down.
Right.
And as we moved through, we expanded to a full day, and I started doing my part, and then asked someone to lead something in the afternoon. By the time we got to the retreat where we planned the vision, I had switched to a model where all I do now for a retreat is I come up with the topic. I come up with the topic, and I ask for volunteers who want to plan the retreats, and I just turn it over to them to figure out what's the best way to do it. And for this last retreat, the topic was simply that I wanted us to develop a vision statement. We had a mission statement, more of an external thing, but we didn't really have a vision statement of what we were trying to achieve as an organization. And I provided that to them, and the group just ran with it.
That's beautiful.
And they really worked. I mean, they led us through a whole process. They did research. They taught us what a vision is compared to a mission statement.
Right.
They went through examples and talked about different companies and what they have and which ones we tried to identify, which related to which companies. And then they led us through a group exercise of working with, we came up with groups of words we wanted to see, and then phrases we wanted to see, and then sentences, until we came to a group decision on what the vision would be. So I think that that's part of, with the up and the pyramid concept, both kind of puts me at the bottom, simply providing the support to them to go create these things. One of the other key pieces is run to great purpose.
Right.
And I think it's critical that you have a goal that you're working towards, and that everybody knows what that goal is. Whether it be just a one-day thing for the retreat, the great purpose is us coming up with a vision statement, or whether it be something much larger, like when we did a software implementation, but that there's a purpose that we're headed towards that everybody's aware of. It's not just me deciding that this is what we need to do and I'm going to figure out how to do it. It's about bringing everybody in. And I think about some of the other pieces. It talks about build on strengths and things like that.
Absolutely.
You know, one of my key roles, I think, in the office is to identify the abilities that people have and work on getting them into positions where they can really succeed with those skills. And I have people that'll say in the office that, you know, they wanted to be involved in something and I actually put them in charge of it. And they're like, I had no idea I was actually going to like this much.
Yes.
And it's, you know, as a leader, trying to see in them, okay, there's those types of skills that they aren't really understanding what they have.
Right, the capabilities.
So, and with having done it for 18 years and having witnessed people succeed, people struggle, other leaders lead, really helps me be able to see, okay, what are the strengths that I can build on so that this team can continue to grow and succeed.
What do you think one of the largest challenges have been for you moving into a role as a serving leader?
Giving up control.
Absolutely.
That would be the number one thing.
Absolutely.
So, especially having
wrestling with yourself as you're trying not to be in control.
Yep.
Exactly.
You know, and all my previous positions were so much built on my ability to get things to work. I had a history of being given things that were somewhat broken.
Right.
And please fix this, and please find a way to make this software work, or make this process work, or make sure that we get X accomplished. And so to have to leave that up to others is a very challenging transition. I think that would be another moment, as you asked me before about what are the moments that I see. Times when I've been able to step back and say, okay, I'm not the one in charge here. I'm the one leading, but I'm not the one who's actually in charge of getting this stuff done.
Absolutely. I do see that, and I thank you so much for being able to identify that. Is there anything that you would like our viewing audience to know in terms of taking the risk to move from being an operations manager in life to being a serving leader? What are maybe the greatest rewards for you?
Well, I think the things, like as you ask, what would I want people to know?
Yeah.
One of the things that first jumps to mind is the concept that you can't do this alone. I truly believe that this isn't something that you can just read a book or think about it or, watch this show and suddenly do
You
it.
became a serving leader.
So it is, there are half a dozen people that I can think of right off the top of my head that are actively involved with me at the university in helping me continue to grow my leadership skills so that I can benefit, the staff can benefit, they can benefit, the university benefits from my growth. So I think that's the first thing, is that this isn't a solo activity. It is a team activity. I think the other piece would just be the huge reward that comes from it. In my personal life, I think about what great friendships I have. I think about that. I had people over recently for one of those milestone birthdays, and just looking around the room and all the people that have been part of my life and how blessed I feel to have them.
Right.
At work, I'm able to look at the office and really think, wow, look at what we've accomplished. Look at the people succeeding in their roles. Probably one of the highest moments for me is when one of the staff provides me with feedback. It's such a compliment to me when staff provides me with feedback, whether it be constructive feedback or whether it be a specific praise. But when they come and they say, we know this is something you're working on and we want you to know you're doing a good job on it.
So those great relationships. So one of the greatest gifts truly has been the incredible relationships and the kinds and ways in which you folks work within your workplace environment.
Yep. I'm very blessed to have the team that I have. And they also, one of the pieces is raise the bar.
That's correct.
And I definitely hold us to a higher level of accountability.
And they can make it.
I only hold people to a level that I know that they can achieve. I don't set a bar so high that people are going to fail. If I'm setting the bar high, it's because I know that they have the strengths. I know that they have the skills. And sometimes you have to set the bar high.
And help them get up there.
If you set the bar low, many people only try to achieve whatever the bar's at.
Right.
And so if you tell them that the bar's only here, even if they have the capability to perform here, they may not be challenged to go any higher. So you need to set the bar at a place where they can achieve it. And quite often you'll see people go right beyond that bar because they're just so, excuse me, my stomach's growling. They're so excited at the opportunity to be able to achieve that and demonstrate their own leadership, their own skills, their own achievements.
Fabulous. I want to thank you because I'd also like our viewing audience to know that Chad has not only been living this, he's begun to take this out. He actually took a serving leader presentation out to NICE, which is a group that you lead for financial aid persons.
Financial aid and student employment.
There you go,
Yep.
for professionals in that area. So I'm so excited to hear you growing that part and spreading the word because it is much bigger than you and I, much bigger than, it's a much bigger process than both of us. It's exciting to see you. For me, it's so beautiful to sit in your presence as you have grown into more of who you are. I'm looking forward to the next 10, 20, 30 years together and watching to where the journey goes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. For those in our viewing audience, if you would like to get in touch with Chad, you can see his information, his contact information on the television set. You can find his email as well as his phone number. If you have questions about being a serving leader or other questions that you might be interested in asking him. In addition to that, if you have other ideas or suggestions that you would like to see being presented on this show, you can reach me at Gwen@inspirit.com, Spirit7.com, excuse me, Gwen@inspirit7.com, or you can reach me through the phone number that you also see on the screen. Again, I'd like to thank you, Chad, for coming. It's so nice to have you. It's always nice to be in your presence.
Thank
we
you.
hope you've enjoyed the show.
program was produced through Penfield Community Television in Penfield, New York.